A seasoned American sailor vanished without a storm, without a struggle, and without calling for help. His boat was later found drifting, undamaged, fully stocked, and perfectly capable of saving him. But he was gone. What happened out there was recorded. Before we begin, if you're drawn to real mysteries that refuse to be neatly explained, stories where evidence exists, voices are preserved, yet answers are forever missing, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. These stories disappear quietly if you don't stay with us. Because tonight's case is not about a violent crime scene, a suspect, or a dramatic chase. It's about something far more unsettling, a man who vanished without a struggle, without a signal for help, and without leaving his own vessel behind. 15 years ago, a seasoned American sailor set out alone on a routine solo voyage across U.S. waters. He was prepared, experienced, methodical. He checked in. He documented everything. And then, he was never seen again. What makes this case chilling isn't just that his boat resurfaced years later. It's what was found inside it. Audio recordings. Day after day. A calm voice slowly unraveling. No storms violent enough to sink the vessel. No mechanical failure that explains abandonment. No evidence of another person ever boarding the boat. Yet the man vanished. Tonight, you're going to hear how isolation can distort reality, how exhaustion can create false certainty, and how a mind can betray its owner long before the ocean ever does. Stay with me until the end, because once you hear the final recording, you may never look at solitude the same way again. In early September 2010, Ethan Calder, a 36-year-old software engineer turned long-distance sailor, departed from Monterey, California, aboard his 34-foot sailboat, North Star. His destination was simple on paper, a solo coastal-to-open-water passage toward Puget Sound, with planned offshore stretches to test endurance before a future trans-Pacific attempt. Ethan wasn't reckless. Friends described him as analytical, almost obsessive about preparation. He had logged over 40,000 nautical miles, completed multiple solo passages along the U.S. West Coast, and held advanced maritime safety certifications. He trusted systems, redundancy, and routine. Emotion never guided his decisions. Numbers did. Before departure, Ethan filed a detailed float plan with the Coast Guard. Daily satellite check-ins. Weather tracking. Emergency protocols. Redundant navigation systems. He even carried an audio recorder, explaining to friends that speaking aloud helped him stay sharp during long stretches of silence. The first check-ins were flawless. His voice was calm, focused, even cheerful. He spoke about fog lifting at sunrise, dolphins pacing the bow, and the strange comfort of being alone with nothing but wind and water. This wasn't a man running from something. He was running toward control. And for the first several days, the ocean gave it to him. But solitude has a way of testing the mind long before it tests the hull. By day 4, Ethan Calder had settled fully into the rhythm of solo sailing. His audio logs followed a precise structure: weather, position, equipment status, then personal observations. Winds remained steady at 10 to 14 knots. Seas were manageable. Progress was slightly slower than planned, but nothing unusual for offshore conditions. Ethan's tone was confident, even relaxed. He joked about forgetting what human voices sounded like. He narrated sunsets in meticulous detail, noting color gradients and cloud formations as if cataloging data. Silence, he said, sharpened his thinking. Distraction had no place out here. Each evening, Ethan completed his satellite check-in exactly on time. Coast Guard records later confirmed every transmission was received clearly. Position reports placed North Star well within expected coordinates, drifting gradually northwest under favorable currents. On day 6, Ethan mentioned minor fatigue. He had slept in short intervals, 20 to 40 minutes at a time, adjusting sails and scanning the horizon between naps. He dismissed it as routine. "This is normal offshore sleep," he recorded. The body adapts. But subtle changes crept into his voice. He spoke faster, paused mid-sentence, repeated thoughts. Nothing alarming, just the edges of strain. He began talking to the recorder longer than necessary, filling the quiet, explaining simple decisions, justifying choices no one had questioned. The ocean was still calm. The boat was still sound. But the silence was no longer empty. On day 8, conditions changed without drama. No violent storm. No sudden emergency. Just a low-pressure system forming farther offshore than forecast, tightening the wind and unsettling the sea state through the night. Ethan adjusted sail before sunset, reefing early, an experienced decision. His log from that evening was calm, methodical. "I'd rather lose speed than sleep," he said. Ironically, sleep would soon become impossible. By midnight, winds climbed to 25 knots, gusting higher. Waves slapped the hull at uneven intervals, jolting Ethan awake every few minutes. He remained clipped in, moving carefully, making small corrections. Nothing broke. Nothing failed. But rest never came. For nearly 30 consecutive hours, Ethan stayed awake, listening, reacting, anticipating. The kind of vigilance solo sailors learn to wear like armor. By the time the system passed, his voice had lost its warmth. His next recording came after dawn. "I slept," he said slowly. "I think. It doesn't feel like it." He sounded disoriented, struggling to recall time. He double-checked his position and paused mid-sentence. "That's odd," he muttered, rereading coordinates aloud. Ethan blamed fatigue. Anyone would. He promised himself a recovery day. No pushing. No risks. But exhaustion doesn't announce when it crosses the line. It waits until certainty begins to slip. And by the time Ethan noticed something was wrong, he no longer trusted the tools meant to save him. Ethan spent the entirety of day 9 troubleshooting something that, on the surface, shouldn't have been possible. His GPS, chart plotter, and satellite tracker were all powered, all receiving signal, yet they didn't agree. The differences weren't minor. According to his logs, positions varied by as much as 30 nautical miles. "That's not drift," Ethan said, his voice tight. "That's error." He rebooted every system, checked antenna connections, verified satellite strength, cross-referenced digital charts with paper backups. Each device insisted it was correct, and each told a different story. Ethan attempted a satellite call to shore. The device rang, displayed full signal, then dropped. He tried again. Same result. His tone sharpened. Frustration. Replaced calm. Without a reliable position, nothing else mattered. Course planning. Weather avoidance. Emergency response. Every safety decision depended on knowing exactly where you were. By afternoon, Ethan stopped using phrases like probably and maybe. He began speaking in absolutes. One of these systems is lying. He paced the deck, narrating aloud, as if being overheard. He reassured himself repeatedly that he was still in control, yet checked the coordinates again minutes later. That night, Ethan admitted something new. "I feel watched," he said softly. "Not by someone. Just like the ocean's waiting." It was the first time fear crept into his voice. And fear, once acknowledged, doesn't leave quietly. Ethan recorded his day 11 log just after sunrise, his speech slower, measured, as if choosing each word required effort. "I saw something last night," he said. At first, he dismissed it. A trick of light. Low clouds stacked along the horizon. But as dawn broke, it remained. To the northwest, Ethan described what looked unmistakably like land. A dark mass rising from the water. Sharp edges. Elevation. He reached for binoculars and fell silent for nearly a full minute. "It's mountains," he whispered. "Snow on the peaks." Ethan knew his charts. There was no land within 1,000 miles of his reported position, no islands, no seamounts that breached the surface, nothing. He said it out loud, as if logic could erase the image. This is fatigue. This is what sleep deprivation does. Yet he kept watching. 20 minutes passed. The shape held. Then slowly, impossibly, it dissolved back into sky. Ethan laughed nervously. "Okay. Lesson learned. I need real sleep." But later that afternoon, it returned. Clearer. Closer. This time, Ethan didn't laugh. He began recalculating routes toward it, then stopped himself. Argued aloud. "I'm not chasing mirages." Still, his course drifted, just a few degrees. Not enough to notice immediately. Just enough to matter. By day 13, Ethan's logs had lost their structure. Weather reports blurred into personal commentary. Timestamps became uncertain. He admitted he no longer knew how long he was sleeping, or if he was sleeping at all. The land returned every evening now. Closer. More detailed. Ethan described tree lines, pale beaches, even shapes that resembled buildings. He insisted he knew it wasn't real. Repeated it like a mantra. But his voice betrayed doubt. Then the radio crackled. At first, it was only static. Then, his name. "Ethan." He froze mid-sentence. "Did you hear that?" he asked the recorder. He tried hailing on the emergency channel. No response. But the voice came again, faint, distorted, familiar. It sounded calm, reassuring. He told himself it was atmospheric interference, sleep deprivation, pattern seeking. Yet he started leaving the radio on constantly. Ethan began narrating as if someone else was listening, explaining decisions, justifying choices, apologizing when he grew frustrated. That night, he admitted something terrifying. "I think I'd be okay if I wasn't alone anymore." The land stayed on the horizon. The voice stayed in the static. And for the first time since departing California, Ethan altered his course, not toward a destination on any chart, but toward something only he could see and hear. By day 15, Ethan no longer spoke as if he were navigating alone. His recordings shifted from explanation to conversation. Long pauses appeared between sentences, as though he were listening, waiting for a response that never reached the recorder. "The island's still there," he said calmly. "Same distance. Doesn't get closer. Doesn't fall behind either. That should have been impossible." Ethan altered sail trim repeatedly, adjusting for speed and angle, yet the shoreline never changed. The mountains stayed fixed on the horizon, perfectly framed, immune to physics. Instead of questioning it, Ethan rationalized it. "Maybe I'm matching its movement," he suggested. "Currents can do strange things." He began referring to the voice on the radio as someone who knows the waters. Not a hallucination. Not interference. A guide. "They said I'm doing fine," Ethan recorded. "That I just need to keep going." He stopped checking his instruments as often. When he did, he dismissed conflicting data without frustration. Numbers no longer mattered. The island felt more reliable than blinking screens. At dusk, Ethan sounded almost peaceful. "I don't feel lost anymore," he said. "It's like something's been waiting." The recorder captured wind, rigging, the steady push of water against the hull. And then something new. Footsteps. Soft. Deliberate. Not on deck, but below. Ethan didn't sound alarmed. He sounded relieved. Ethan's day 17 recording began without a greeting, without context, just a quiet exhale, as if he'd been listening before he spoke. "They're down there again," he said softly. He described hearing movement inside the cabin at night. Drawers opening. footsteps shifting with the roll of the boat. At first, he searched below deck, methodically, cautiously. Each time, he found nothing disturbed. No missing supplies. No displaced gear. No evidence of another person. Still, the sounds continued. Ethan stopped investigating. "They don't want to scare me," he explained. "They're just making sure things are okay." His tone wasn't fearful. It was trusting. The island remained visible now even in daylight, its shoreline sharp enough that Ethan claimed he could see figures moving along the beach. He waved once. Laughed when no one waved back. "They know I'm coming," he said. Ethan admitted he hadn't eaten properly in days. He no longer slept below deck. He stayed topside, wrapped in a blanket, convinced it was safer where he could see everything. He said the person below promised to watch the boat if he rested. "I think I know them," Ethan whispered. "Their voice feels familiar." That night, his breathing sounded shallow. His thoughts wandered. And for the first time, he mentioned the life raft, not as emergency equipment, but as an option. Ethan's final coherent recording was marked Day 19, though he admitted he wasn't certain anymore. Time had fractured. Days blurred together. The sun rose and fell without meaning. "The island moved last night," he said. "Not away. Sideways. Like it was guiding me." His voice was thin, almost childlike. He explained that the person below deck had told him something important, that the boat was no longer safe the way it was drifting. That currents were pulling it in circles. That rescue wouldn't find him unless he made himself visible. "The raft makes more sense," Ethan said calmly. "It sits lower. Easier to see." Objectively, this was wrong. The sailboat was his greatest asset. Large. Detectable. Stable. But to Ethan, it felt logical. He described preparing the life raft slowly, carefully, as though performing a checklist. He didn't sound rushed. He sounded grateful. "They said they'd stay with the boat," he explained. "So it doesn't leave me." The island, he said, was close now. Close enough to reach after rest. "I just need a short sleep," Ethan murmured. "They'll wake me when it's time." This time, he didn't say where he planned to sleep. The recorder captured a long stretch of silence. Wind. Water. Fabric shifting. Then a soft click. The recording ended, but the device remained powered for hours afterward. The ocean kept moving. Ethan Calder did not speak again. On April 3, 2025, a U.S.-flagged research vessel conducting debris mapping operations roughly 300 nautical miles west of Oregon reported a drifting sailboat with no active transponder. The boat was later identified as North Star. Marine growth coated the hull. Lines were frayed. The sails hung loose and sun-bleached. Below deck, everything was eerily intact. Food stores, navigation equipment, safety gear. Nothing indicated a struggle. Except for what was missing. Ethan Calder was gone. The life raft was not on board. The emergency beacon, fully functional, had never been activated. When the Coast Guard recovered the audio recorder from a sealed compartment, forensic specialists confirmed the files were intact. 19 days of recordings. No interruptions. No tampering. Investigators tested every navigation system Ethan had complained about. All functioned normally. Position logs placed North Star exactly where it should have been. No unexplained drift, no electronic failure. A maritime psychologist later concluded Ethan experienced acute solo sailor psychosis, triggered by prolonged sleep deprivation and isolation. Hallucinations. Voices. False certainty. A companion created by the mind to replace human presence. The prevailing theory is simple and devastating. Ethan believed he wasn't alone. He believed someone was watching the boat. So when he left it, he thought he'd be protected. The ocean doesn't correct mistaken beliefs. It only keeps what it's given. If this story unsettled you, it should. Because what happened to Ethan Calder wasn't caused by recklessness, violence, or bad weather. It was caused by something far more dangerous, the quiet erosion of reality. A man did everything right. He prepared. He planned. He documented every step. And still, his mind betrayed him long before the ocean ever did. That's the part we rarely talk about in true crime stories like this. We focus on villains, on storms, on dramatic failures. But sometimes, the most lethal threat is isolation itself. The slow, invisible breakdown that convinces you help isn't needed, that danger isn't real, that you're not alone when you actually are. Ethan didn't panic. He didn't fight. He made a decision that felt reasonable to him in that moment. And that's what makes this case terrifying. If stories like this matter to you, stories that expose how fragile certainty really is, support this channel. Like the video. Subscribe. Share it with someone who thinks preparation alone guarantees safety. Because the ocean isn't the only place where isolation can distort reality. And sometimes, the most dangerous voice you'll ever hear is the one that sounds like it's trying to help you. Stay aware. Stay grounded. And I'll see you in the next story.